Okay, hit it.
I just was wondering if you guys could sort of tell me what you think it means, or whether that's formally or content or anything, and then I'll just sort of jot it down and you'll kind of figure it out.
Was there something in this particular painting that you were after that was specific to this one? Or?
Yeah, I was really kind of thinking about the composition and just maybe just trying to sort of synthesize some of the teachings I've learned in this program, and just I don't know, just trying to make a painting that I like and that I want to make.
Katie, you look thoughtful.
I was just thinking about how we've been talking a lot about humor today.
About what's this?
About humor.
Humor.
How we're talking about humans and critique. And I feel like there's humor in this. And I was also trying to remember I was looking so thoughtful because I was trying to remember what his last crit was like and what he took from that crit and put into this. I feel like this space is. Well, I'm gonna stop there. I want to think about what I'm going to say before I say anything.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Before I speak.
Well, I think we talked a lot about the CGI sort of like internet spaces in your last crit, and how you were sort of playing with religion in the way that like the internet plays with sort of like larger philosophical contexts, in that it sort of like makes fun of them in a way that like AI sort of makes fun of things and the sort of AI mashups. But I don't see this painting doing that one as much as that. I remember the painting like the weird Jesus on it with the snakes. I see this painting more like a Bosch video game context. I think there's a sort of flattening of the space that happens at the top, especially in that demon on the right surrounded by the black. That looks like a video game character thing that I'm like about to beat up. But yeah, I believe this is speaking more towards like sort of towards your earlier work with like the narrative in it and the way that it's sort of, it does a thing. It's like these people are being purified.
I did want to say, like, formally, I feel like the way that your perspective and how you're like breaking up like the different planes. I don't know what it's called, but we talked about this like in Stephen's like perspective lecture, where you're breaking up the planes, and I think that that's a lot more successful than a lot of the other techniques you've done to like create depth.
You mean like foreground, middle ground, background planes? Or
Yeah,
like,
and then he's doing it in like shapes and like patterns almost, and it to me is just formally a lot stronger way that you're creating depth and like space in the painting.
I agree. I feel like in addition to the variation of plane, there's also the color, like as you see it is getting bluer. I feel like in your last piece there was a lot of high saturation, and I feel as though there's more like value in this. I think is helping with like these more depth.
Yeah, the sense of color in this painting, I think, is used almost similarly. I'm still trying to figure out what it means, like the little demon. God is bringing the people who are coming out of the river of pain, whereas before the floods are to. This painting also has, to me, a clearer narrative than some of the other ones do. Like some of the other ones look like more of a
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of funny to have just been looking at the Corbett's and Pissarros and then walked into this because I felt like one of the most compelling things about those paintings for me was these strong vertical structures within the paintings that were kind of like invisible. And I feel like here it's the vertical lines within the painting, whether that be created through a different value or literally because there are trees, that I feel like is really holding the top and the bottom of the painting together. And so all the planes feel a lot more harmonious than I think they did in some of your previous work.
That's right.
Yeah, no, you can't cheat that.
I was also thinking of Pizarro just because we talked about the way that like the path kind of curves back in to describe the space, which, you know, that has me thinking about history of landscape. And I kind of see the painting in two ways because of that. Because on one hand, it's this like landscape that we can kind of go back into. And so the figures and all the verticality seems like printed on top of that almost in a kind of superficial way to me. So
See, I don't know if I quite agree with Pizarro. Because with Pizarro, what we just saw, they were a little, the pathways were a little more woven into the whole composition or went more far back with the composition, where here the pathway is like blocked by more trees. There seems to be like three paths to the horizon line. One is the river, the other is the road, and then to me there's like an implied one that goes through the building.
Through what?
Goes through the building. Like it's almost like there's three doorways in a way, which I'm still trying to like understand, especially like something just more like bizarre.
Like the doorway of the building?
Yeah. Like it's just another path you could take, kind of going into that video game comment. I think I've seen it.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It's like I can choose the river, I can choose the road, or I can jump the house. But again, that just leads to a more distinct narrative, I think, than before.
I mean, there's a tightness to the drawing that almost reminds me of a Renaissance print or something in kind of more doing illustration and drawing than something like Pissarro's, which runs kind of in an intriguing way against the fantasy element. So on the one hand, you have kind of complete letting loose of the kind of realistic aspect, wedded to this incredibly tight line and kind of linear composition of space, along with, at least from here, what looks like very acid colors. So the whole mix kind of, I don't know how I'm dealing with that, but I kind of feel like those are the kind of main elements of this work.
Well, I'm gonna pick up on that a minute. My favorite part of this painting is the sky. I think that the way the clouds are drawn and the color in the clouds and the covering of the clouds by the leaves of the trees is really beautiful. It's complicated, but it's more intricate. Intricate is the word, in a way that I think is interesting. The lower part of the painting, I have some mixed feelings about because it becomes so symmetrical that there's a kind of dynamic quality of the clouds that I feel is the rhythms aren't carried through at the bottom of the painting so much. I mean, it reminds me of the sky, the way the sky's done reminds me of early Italian paintings like, I don't know, the master of the Osservanza, Duccio, where but in these, this is not a bad thing, Joe, I'm just trying to describe it. They have very wacky perspectives that shift around all the time. And you don't. You have a very clear sort of, one single vanishing point. And I wonder if that's helping you or not. I mean, I feel something that's tied down for me at the bottom where it feels more static. and if you free that up, that might be interesting. And connected to that, so I also often think about medieval book illuminations when I see these. But the people have observed that there's more sort of single narrative, which I also noticed. Instead of 10,000 incidents going on everywhere, there's this one sort of thing that's taking place. And I think that's interesting, an interesting way to go. At least it functions like a kind of commitment to the story in the painting. I'm just like weighing this out, in balance out loud. But I do think that's different in this painting than in your previous work. It still seems like there's, I was thinking of Henry Darger. You know his work, don't you? Yep. Henry Darger. He's an outsider artist who does these multi-figure compositions that are, sort of fantastical. I think you might like them, actually. But what I'm trying to get at is the formal order, the groupings of the figures, and how the groupings of the figures relate the narrative that's going on. I think that's a bit static.
Yeah, to me they feel like a composite of stop motion animation, as if like you put each frame of an animation onto one plane. And one part of the composition that I feel like draws me in the most is the figures in the lower left, how they're kind of cut off and entering the plane. Like that to me is an entry point for the viewer in a way that I haven't seen in your other work.
Is this a group?
The whole thing.
I think the thing that we started doing in the last one, where you have the kind of more light coming through the paint, and the acrylic is working in your favor here too. Why did you make it this size instead of larger?
I don't know. I was just thinking that maybe I should start working a little more small, so it doesn't, because it's a little, I don't know, it's a little easier for me to paint smaller, especially when there's so much detail, and then kind of get it done.
So more for practical reasons.
Yeah.
I also initially liked the way that the trees intersected with the clouds the best, but then I think I moved down. I think the thing that's interesting about this painting is the way that the background and the foreground are so far apart and like so connected by this stream down the center. I find that pretty compelling, and I mean, one thing about your paintings that they're becoming more and more formally beautiful. I always try to read the narratives, and I have no idea about what it means. And like you ask what it means, and I just have absolutely no idea. Like the closest I could come is like something about being divided. Like there's like maybe a rainbow guy and a devil guy. So there's like bad and good, and then there's like this green figure and a pink figure, and it's like combined and then goes into the river, and then it's just pink.
I find it very hard now to read it as some kind of redemption narrative of being made whole, because you've got these divided figures
Yeah,
who then become one
right.
after they go through a kind of baptismal experience.
Okay,
I mean,
that's good.
that's where that goes for me.
I started thinking about that book, The Divided Self by R.D. Laing.
Yes, I know it.
Yeah, anyway. But I then on the other hand, I just start thinking like, well, maybe R.D. Laing started this like thing in London. He believed that people could sort of be healed of their psychological maladies by just like being in a safe environment, although the environment that he created was very unsafe. I think somebody was even killed and it was like horrible. But he was really, it was like 70s, he was really trying to like sort of like make a kind of utopian psychology ward kind of thing. But yeah, anyway, so that's sort of what I think about is somebody like R.D. Laing when I think about this.
Seen through a kind of Christian lens with the baptism.
Also, but the people in R.D. Laing's institute would have just been like able to just do whatever they wanted,
Right.
you know, like without any kind of like need to be healed or conform to the society in any way. And so it's sort of like this is just like whatever is in your mind. And I can see somebody who's like really invested in looking at pictures, and there's a lot of just beauty and finesse in this, and mystery that the building is like an organ. That's pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, the figures look like army figurines that people collect and like go out and do.
Right.
But I also like how you're using acrylic. Like the surface, the way you're going about painting, it reads to me as oils. I think that's how you're going about it.
Yeah, it's not really a critique, but like every time you show something, I'm like blown away by how well you have agency over the material.
There seems to be this drive for like 19th century or 20th century illustrators to like paint mythology and like paganism and things of that nature. I think of like there's this surrealist, the like lesser known surrealist Joffre Boschard, who like painted the zodiac for like most of the end of his career. But he made like a ton of these paintings that were like way super over involved, that looked a lot like your church in the way that it's like this, it was like this white texture that like pretty much enveloped everything. And they like spoke in a way to like bodily forms. And so I can't not see him in this painting. But there's also like Goya. Goya did a lot of like mythological etchings of like vampires and things of that nature that maybe you could look at. I think those are very, very dramatic compositionally, and this is a bit. Yeah, I mean, the landscape just kind of lends itself to a level of predictability in this. Honestly, I'd like to see you kind of eat the composition with something a little more dramatic.
Well, going back to the thing of Fiducio or the Master of the Osservanza, they do lots of interesting narrative things by bending the space around. It's perspectival, but it's not consistently perspectival. And so you don't get that tunnel effect that can be so deadening. And yet you have the drama of the perspective. And the other thing, back to Henry Darger again, and what Chettima said, I think that the specific character of the figures is important to, when you come to write your thesis, I think I'd like you to address that, why are these figures like this? Not that, this is not a complaint, it's just like, they do look like a bit like military toy figures, or like, I don't know, something of that sort. Like Darger uses these figures he dreams up that are really these crazy androgynous little girls. And so, but the way the figures look plays a big role in the feeling of the narrative in these paintings, and so it's important to think about that.
I think one of the things that I feel like makes Rick Dodger's figures really work in his paintings is that they're tracing, so he uses like the same tracing over and over again, so like that form gets like repeated throughout the painting. Whereas, you know, and then it has like a kind of, that just like formally, it just makes it easier to look at.
It ties them together rhythmically.
Yeah.
The figures, that's something I'm talking about in the foreground, Joe, that I think the figures get too sort of, there's this one and then there's that one, and they don't tie together in a sort of movement very well.
And there was something Fox recently said to me, that makes me think about that with these figures, like thinking about the interiority of the figure, like what is the, like how is that working in the painting, thinking about, yeah, that, I think would be helpful.
Well, if there's some kind of mannequin, or, android, or, non-fully human figure, or demons, or something, I mean, exactly what that is, how that's supposed to feel is not completely clear to me.
I mean, the question of why is always tricky. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
I think
why-
the question, I know how you mean it. I
Yeah.
just want to sort of put a finer point on that, which is like, I think why can feel like an interrogation, like why'd you do that? But it's like not why'd you do that, but like how did you come to that? Like what was the process by which? And I think what Chidima is saying is, and it's like the figures have interiority because you have interiority, and so it's about just being able to describe what's going on inside of you as you are making whatever decisions you're making. And it's not like decisions like a big decision. I mean, a decision happens in a very intuitive way, obviously. But can you, at the point of making the intuitive decision, pause just for enough to be like, I guess I was thinking about this, or can you interrogate that at all, rather than, and sometimes the question of why, because it makes one feel defensive, can begin to give an answer that is, I think defensive answers tend to be like big, broad, sweeping answers, because small answers tend to be a little bit more just about your interiority. They tend to be a little bit more about you. And so maybe trying to think about, I think that these paintings increasingly have interiority. Like there's so much attention to detail. Like the amount of time that you're spending painting the clouds and the trees and the mountains and all of these curves and the attention to color, all of that just feels really, the water is very beautiful. I kind of don't agree with people actually that it feels very not digital to me. Like there's a little bit of digital, but in terms of like where I feel the digital in young people's painting today, this is pretty like low in the sort of, I don't know. There's a lot of ways in which people use color in really sharp ways. That's about digital. The color in here is much calmer and subtler. So there's a lot about it that I don't read as a video game or something like that. I mean, obviously I do as well, but it just feels like there's opportunity for reflection, and that could produce. It'd be interesting to know how that would shift the composition and open up possibilities in the painting.
I agree. I think this one is, the older paintings looked more like digital world or
Yeah.
gaming to me. This one feels more like medieval.
Yeah, me too.
Is it the kind of subtler color palette?
Yeah,
Or the more
and it's less packed with sort of action incidents. But just to say, the question of the why question, I think that's important, and I didn't mean that you should say what this means. I'm not asking that question, but why are you attracted to that kind of figure? What is it about that kind of figure that makes you want to populate the paintings with it? I think you can sort of look back over the course of your own development and think, well, what was I thinking about when I started doing that? Why is this satisfying to me to see this?
And the painting reminds me
one time I have seen this in Firenze. It's not the church, but the old French paintings have the stranger figures and devils, and it's a little similar.
Where?
I have to.
Because I was thinking about Florence too. I was thinking about the Palazzo
I just have
Medici.
the-
There's this painter called Bozzi, who,
It's not the church, it's the.
well, I'm thinking about this palazzo.
You're thinking about Benazzo Gazzo.
The Medici, the Gozzoli
Yeah.
chapel in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Palazzo Medici. And one of the things about Gozzoli is that he kind of took medieval.
Because.
I forget the name.
Yeah.
But this painter Gozzoli, one of the things that is one of his trademarks is that he did his trees in these very linear renderings where the foliage is completely symmetrical, and he uses it to kind of structure the space. And the background of this painting, the trees remind you of that because they're frequently very skinny with no leaves and then kind of leaves on the top. But I think it resonates because kind of against the grain of all these Florentine humanists, he was still looking to medieval manuscript illumination as this composition. But just doing it in fresco.
We looked at these paintings in the first year seminar about a week ago. Now, these were the ones with the medieval backgrounds. We were talking about the difference between the foreground and the background. Yeah.
Okay. And the altarpiece you were talking about, what century is that? You were saying Duccio and the master.
The master of the Osservanza. But I'm talking about they're just panel paintings. This is very similar to Duccio. They used to be attributed to Duccio. But they're in the National Gallery, Joe, in these ones. But there's one of two saints meeting on the road, and it's done. This is a device you might, Joe, you might appeal to you. The narrative goes from the deep space to the foreground. Instead of going crossways like a comic strip, the stuff that's happening in the past is happening farther away from you. And gradually, as they come, there's this sort of winding road, and they come from the deep space down this winding road, and finally they meet in the foreground. So, but it's a really interesting way of indicating time in a painting that I had never seen anywhere else.
What's the name of this painting?
Some two saints meeting on the road, the master of the Osservanza. You see it?
I'm just writing it down.
Oh, okay. They actually know this guy's name now, but I can't, they figured it out about 10 years ago. I can't remember the master's name. But you were saying about the Gazzoli paintings, I think that's way in his, right down his alley. The separation of the planes that Dre was talking about in the, from foreground and foreground and background, how, but it's not, Joe, the cool thing about it is that it's not consistent. I mean, each one has sort of its own, each plane has its own kind of spatial concept.
And that particular piece by Goetze has a lot of animals.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of known for its representation of animals. But some of them border on the monstrous. The horses, I mean, it's really a fantastic fresco cycle. But yeah, the way that the kind of non-human kind of